Good afternoon, everybody watching this. This laptop here has become my daily driver machine. And right now, my only actual computer other than some servers running. This is a little Asus C202S Chromebook. It has 4 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of storage. It is pretty slow, but it works for what I need it to do, and it basically can do almost everything other than run games. It is super simple construction. You just undo these screws, and I've had to take it apart a few times, which I'll get into why later, so I just blocked out some of the screws. But yeah, well, now that it's upside down, but you can see where it says C202S. These were actually originally developed for education sector. So you have your typical hard plastic, and then there's this rubber around the side where it's, I don't know if that shows up, but it's basically kind of a rubber plastic thing that they added along the sides and has like a bumper, I guess, and it's around the top as well. You get it all the way around the back, and it's supposed to make it more drop resistant. You can see here, I don't know how this happened, but it's got a huge gouge there, and I don't know if that's from the old owner. I ended up getting this basically for free. It's got a USB 3.0 and the charging port and the Kensington lock. And it's got a very battery indicator and a power on indicator, or I guess on indicator, which is very not hard to see, or hard to see. And then the next side just has HDMI, another USB 3, 3.5 millimeter aux, and a full-size SD card slot. So super basic design. I keep taking this apart because the trackpad. Under this trackpad here, there's a connector, one of those little ribbon cables that goes from the trackpad to the motherboard, and the connector on the trackpad broke because it's one of those things you flip it up, you stick the ribbon cable in, and then you close the little tab, and the tab broke off. So I've had to glue it twice. First time I didn't use very much glue, and this time I used a lot of glue. Now, the keys, if you can see that, look a little bit weird. And that's because I painted glow-in-the-dark paint on them as an experiment, just to see, since this is not a backlit keyboard. And I often kind of sit in the dark using it at night, and it's hard to see the keys sometimes. It doesn't really work that well, but that's whatever. It was just an experiment, and I can probably just take a little bit of acetone or something like that and take it off the keys, but it doesn't really bother me. This Chromebook is EOL. It's unfortunately running version 1.103, which is about almost 3 years old build now. Unfortunately, I think we're at version 132 now. I think it's just what it came out. And I tried putting Chrome OS Flex on this machine, but unfortunately, Chrome OS Flex doesn't really work on some of these older machines, simply due to the fact that this has an older Celeron, and oftentimes the sound card driver is not included with, I guess it's just they just don't include the driver now with the current builds of Chrome OS and Chrome OS Flex. So if you are unfortunately buy one of these and go to install Chrome OS Flex, hoping you can get run the newer version of Chrome OS, you're going to end up with no audio from the machine's speakers or the headphone jack. Some people say that the USB audio works, but as this only has 2 USB ports, and one of them has my little mouse dongle plugged into it, I don't want to be using a USB dongle to connect my headphones to it. That might be an option in the future, but it'd just be really nice if they could just put the driver in, or at least somehow let people put the driver in themselves so that you can keep using these machines, because it's kind of a shame. The way I've gotten around this, it's got 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it says 0.22, but available. But Chrome OS has, it caches a lot of stuff, so it always basically, the RAM is basically always full, but I can open a ton of tabs and do a ton of things on here. Like I have all kinds of stuff open right now, a whole bunch of Chrome tabs, Discord, Visual Studio Code, and I have Spotify open too, and it's running fine. But I guess the Chrome OS unused RAM is wasted RAM, and it likes to cache everything. But it really runs decently well, and in order to get around having a bad or an old, outdated version of the browser, I was a curious monkey and downloaded the current version of Chrome browser, the deb file for whatever Linux distro, and it runs inside the Linux VM, the built-in Linux VM. Now it's kind of slow and not, you can only keep 1 or 2 tabs open, it's fine, but it often really chugs slowly if you open more than 1 tab. So you do actually have the option of running the current version of like Chrome browser on this machine, but it's stable-ish, but not if you're running a lot of tabs or anything like that. So for now, I'm just using the normal, Chrome browser. The only site that really is broken is ChatGPT, but it's working now, so I'm not sure what they changed. But it does take a lot of, well, it didn't open, I guess. Probably because I have Visual Studio Code open, but normally it'll open up and I can actually access the newer version of Chrome browser. But it would be really, really nice to be able to put Chrome OS Flex on this machine, especially since I'm not using any Android apps, so I don't really need the Android functionality. But the no audio is kind of a deal breaker. And I did try FidoOS, and for some reason FidoOS won't boot on this machine. I think the CPU is too old. And I did try Ubuntu and Linux Mint, and both of them had audio issues. So I kind of just said, screw this, and went back to Chrome OS. Which I know some people are probably screaming that it's running version 103, but I mean, it works for me and does everything I needed to do. And I basically got this machine for free, and the battery's still good. I'm surprised. It's a 9-year-old machine, and the battery still lasts me 6-7 hours. But it is pretty low spec CPU, and it's passively cooled, which is why there's no fan grill or nothing. So I don't know. I tend to keep finding these old computers and using them, and then a lot of times I get them for dirt cheap because there's an issue, which that's why I got this, because the trackpad was intermittently not working, and I ended up finding that the trackpad connector was broken. So I normally get these machines for super cheap and use them, and then sell them, or you waste them, or whatever. But anyway, I thought that'd be a little fun video to make about this complete dinosaur potato machine that I'm using.